Welcome to another edition of Bob and Chad. I think it's number 115. We look forward to this all the time, and we have a special guest with us, Dallon Murty. You know, and Dallon, I'll have to say, when I was looking up your statistics, and then I found out that you're only 19 years old, I'm like, how in the hell did you do all this in this short period of time? 73 IMCA stock car wins, two-time Super Nationals titles, 2021 becoming the youngest ever racer to win a Super Nationals title at the age of 16. And then you backed it up in 2022 with another Super Nationals champion back to back. 2023, you won the B&B IMCA All-Star race at the Super Nationals. Of course, I realize that you've got a pretty great mentor that's definitely helped you out a lot. One of my better buddies, your dad, Damon. I've known Damon for years and highly respect him as a racer and as a person. And he's always been great to me. And I think very highly of him and your mom and your little sister's fun too.
Yeah.
And in 2024, you were the first ever IMCA Florida State champion and the IMCA Clash at the Coast champion, along with numerous pretty good sized wins. Marshalltown win at the end of the
Yep.
year, that whole hog win at Stewart, uh, the catwalk thing at Boone.
Yeah.
You had quite a few big paying shows that you won. And once again, this is all at the age of 19. A couple months you'll be 20. Um, Nice to see you're finally getting older so that these old guys don't feel quite
Yeah.
so bad.
Yeah.
But that isn't all of it. 21 IMCA wins in the modified, and you've qualified for three of the last four Super Nationals championships or the Super Nationals races in an IMCA modified, which is extremely hard to do.
Oh yeah.
And last year, of course, you finished fourth, which was your best finish. So tell me how you do all this.
I don't know. I think you said it best. I had a great mentor there, kind of in my back pocket. My dad. He was probably the best mentor anyone could ask for. But just got a lot of great sponsors. Got a lot of great people behind me that just put me in the position to do what we're doing, and just it all kind of just fell into my hand. I don't know. Just it's definitely a lot of hard work and a lot of late nights, but like you mentioning all that, it sure sounds great, and it makes everything seem like it was sure worth it.
Well, you're an amazing talent because I've got to watch you for quite a while. I remember when you were pretty good on that little scooter when you were probably about 8 or 9 at the racetrack, running around in the infield.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he could make that scooter do stuff that a lot of kids couldn't. That was pretty impressive.
I wore that thing out around the pits.
Yeah, I would have to say so. So, what did you start in? Was that like a Batwing car or something that you started racing, or what did you tell me about how you actually started racing?
Yeah, well, I was always into go karts, and then I kind of started growing up out of that, and got into cage karts for a year or two, and then at Benton County Speedway and Independence, and then a little bit more up north, they introduced that micro mod class, which was pretty similar to the mod lights. Just it was a chain driven deal with a 600cc crotch rocket engine, and did that for a few years at Benton and Independence, and that deal was pretty fun. It was a good way to get into the big car racing, and then from there on out, it just got right into stock cars, and then now we got them modified too.
Yeah, I remember when they put you in that stock car, you couldn't see over the dash, let alone anything else.
Yeah, I think my sister's car seat was bigger than the racing seat
Yeah,
I had in the car.
there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I see you have your modified for sale. What's your plans for 2025?
Still undecided. We're gonna work with Harris. Probably get another deal like we had. It's got 3 seasons on it, and I just need to get refreshed. But there's definitely nothing wrong with it. Just looking to get a little fresher equipment.
Yeah, well, that's always a good idea. I mean, it doesn't probably have that many nights. Well, I mean, you actually raced it quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I put at least 40 on it probably each year. I
Well,
tried to balance it out with racing the stock car and the modified. There's just so many stock car shows. It's hard to really focus on one or the other throughout the summer.
well, yeah. I mean, the amount of stock car specials that actually pay pretty good money is totally amazing anymore.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I mean, you could just race for a living, which is probably what you did.
Yeah, I'm trying
Yeah, I
to,
seen
but
you in the combine this fall.
yeah, they finally let me drive that. That was pretty fun. Little not near as fast, but just probably even more stressful though.
Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Yep, I could believe that. Yep, I can believe that. Um, so what? So tell me about you were doing some racing down south this fall. Tell me about that, or this year. Tell me about that car.
Yeah, that's Cash Wilson's car. He's I linked up with him about last October, and they have those Cruiser Street stocks, which they got their own Bernheiser. I think makes a like a square tubing
Oh
frame.
yeah, yep.
It's pretty narrow though. It's not near as wide as our stock frames or even that Speedway frame, but they're built off that or a Johnson frame. You can pick whichever one. But this is a Bernheiser frame, and it's got the Camaro nose on it, but it's got pretty much a late model body from there on out. So the bodies I think are really cool, and then you run a 602 crate with an 8-inch spoiler, and then you're on an H500 tire. So
Wow.
pretty tight. It was kind of
Yeah, that's a
I
lot of
find
spoiler and tire for a 6.0.
yeah. Finally, I just started doing everything that I do on my stock car. I just do the complete opposite, and then it started turning.
Good.
But no,
So,
those are fun. I enjoyed doing that.
well, they look. I mean, I've seen pictures on Facebook that you posted, and that car looked pretty cool.
Yeah. Just the look of them with that, they run the plastic bodies or the aluminum all cut out. And they just look so much nicer, I think.
Yeah. Nope. I thought they did. Well, we got any? What's new and exciting at Weir's Machine?
Well, we had another busy Monday. When you give a 4-day weekend and a Black Friday sale, you tend to get everybody excited about buying race parts in the off season. But you
Sure.
got one more day. You got the rest of tonight to get them orders in for the free shipping deal. And so we were busy with the orders today, and now we're doing the last minute thrashing to get ready for the race in the dome this weekend. So we all leave Wednesday for that. So we're excited to get down there and be a part of that again and see everybody. It's such a cool event. Can't wait to get there.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like a pretty cool deal. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching. Is that on Flow?
Hello, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Are you going down, Dallon?
No, we leave for Jamaica Thursday for a family vacation, so we'll be gone
Oh,
for that week.
that'll be cool.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty fun too.
Yeah, that sounds like
Yeah.
a pretty good time. I mean, this
That's
would be a
about the
good
only thing
time.
I'll do to miss that race.
Yeah, this is a good time of the year to be going to Jamaica, no doubt. The way
Yeah.
the weather's been lately, it sounds like it's not going to be too bad on Wednesday, but the rest of the week doesn't look real good. So what else is new and exciting? So what have you got planned for the stock car for next year? You're going to just recondition the car you have now, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna tear it all apart and put that new MD3 body on it, try that deal out, and get that all mounted up, and then just refresh everything on that car, and I think I had it rolling pretty good at the end of the year, so I just hate to do any drastic changes to it, but just go from there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, I think you had that thing rolling pretty good all year.
Yeah.
And it seemed
Well,
like
it felt
every time I seen it, it was like, oh man.
yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, no doubt. So what's Dad doing for next year? Just reconditioning his car too, then?
No, he has been overdue for a new car for a while. Yeah, he's gonna get a new car, and then he got that new body, and we got a lot of work to do yet, and I don't think we've touched really anything yet.
So now is he getting a new car with that new frame then?
I think so. I'm not for sure yet, but I think he's gonna. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how well that does.
Yeah. Well, Mike Kennedy, who owns those two cars that McBurney drives,
Yeah.
uh, he had a new one built, but he didn't build it on that new frame.
Oh, he
Now I
didn't.
know we've got one coming from B&B. I think it's next week, and that's going to be on the new frame.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting.
yeah, I'm kind of I got mixed emotions on that whole deal. I mean, the thing looks a little rigid, but I mean, I remember when we finally got the AFCO stubs, that that cutting that junkyard stuff up. I mean, what a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Well, we got any questions out there? Anybody want to chime in here? We're ready for some questions. All you stock car guys, we got the guy that wins an awful lot of races here. That now's the time to get questions answered. Of course, our big news this week was the Harris Clash. So the 34th annual Harris Clash, we're making some changes. We're changing the date. We're moving it to June. It's June 24th. August is kind of a hard month to get fans. It just seems like, and it's gradually got worse over the years. There's so much stuff going on. There's county fairs, there's state fairs, there's vacations, there's getting ready for school, and there's just so much stuff going on. So we kind of made the decision to move it to the end of June. There isn't, at least from what I've seen, there wasn't a whole lot of races there. June, the beginning of the month, weather can be kind of an issue, but hopefully, knock on wood, weather will be good the 24th. We're moving it to Boone Speedway. Man, I really hate to leave Deer Creek. I love that place. I love those guys. I mean, they have been above and beyond gracious to us and done everything that we ever wanted to do up there. And Cole and his group up there, it's just second to none. I mean, it's one of the best facilities out there. Problem was, we're in a different sanctioning body area, and those people just, they're used to seeing stuff with a bigger spoiler and a noisier engine, and they just didn't want to come out to watch IMCA racing, and so it just kind of got to the point where it wasn't very feasible for the racetrack. And I mean, and they didn't, they didn't say that they weren't going to do it. I just felt bad the last 2 years. I know it hasn't been profitable for them, and I mean, business is business. You don't do stuff just for the heck of it, let alone lose money. So I talked to Mr. Lawton and and Brett Root, and we had some other Iowa racetracks that were pretty interested in holding it. And the biggest drawing factor was the fact that Boone's centrally located. We know they know how to run races because we spend 8 days there in September every year. And so I know they'll do an awesome job. Lottie and his crew are second to none. I mean, they always do a good job. I enjoy going over there. It's just a nice facility, and they do a good job. So I'm looking forward to that. IMCA has always been good to us and done everything that they can to make that race good. It is IMCA's oldest one-day event. And this year will make the 34th year. So that's exciting. And we're going to add stock cars. So you don't have any choice, Dallon. You're going to have to come.
Oh, I'll be there.
So, so I'm excited about that. I think it's been a very positive. We've had a lot of positive feedback about that, and so I'm excited about that. So that's still working on all the details. Online registration will begin on January 1st, and stay tuned for updates. They will be on the Harris Clash Facebook page and on the website www.harrisclash.com. All right, we have some questions. Mike, hi Dalan. This question is for you. How much front stagger do you run in a stock car, and do you change it from track to track?
I run about a quarter to 3/8 of front stagger. No, I've been on that, or my dad and me have been on that ever since we've been in stock cars. I feel like modifieds tend to run a little bit more, but our cars just our biggest struggle is where we turn in too good. We're never really quite tight getting in. So I've always had to run real narrow stagger in the front to try to compensate that.
Oh, that's very interesting because I know there's some guys out there run a lot,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I mean, I had one guy tell me about that one time, and I'm like, "Are you serious?" And yeah, I'm like, well, "Okay, well, whatever works." And you won 13 national titles, so I guess it must work for you. Who am I to say? Kyle, stock car, very slight nose push on exit. What could we try to take that out? Well, of course, I'm kind of a stagger guy, so I mean, if it's coming off the corner, a little more rear stagger might help. But what's your suggestions, Chad?
Uh
Or go ahead,
oh
Dallin.
yeah, go ahead. I'd say I don't know, maybe the right front's probably not racing as low as it should, especially on exit. That's when you want your right front to be at its lowest point. In my opinion, and maybe if you could kill a little right front load without running into the right height rule, or maybe a little more camber if you're not running a crazy amount of camber. Maybe bump the camber up just a little bit in the right front.
Yeah, good points. That's awesome. Um, let's see, Dave, opinions on different rear end widths, 60, 61, 62 in the stock cars. Yeah, that's kind of been a common thing here this last couple of years, people running different widths and stuff like that. Um, stock car stuff that we do, we've run the 62-inch rear end where we're sticking the left rear out a little bit more. Um, what do you guys think?
I don't know much about the rear end widths and them things. What do you
Uh,
run
we've been
down?
we've been on a 60 pretty much the entire time. I've never really tried moving the left rear in or out, and we've been on the same offsets with it too. So
Um, Mike says, do you prefer a heavy or light left rear spring in stock cars, and why? I'm assuming he's asking you. I mean, from my perspective, we've got customers all over the board. I mean, 150 seems to be the common one that most of our customers run, but I know everybody's all over the board on that.
yeah, I'd say 125 or 150 is just pretty much your standard left rear spring nowadays. The 125 will give you a little more instant traction, a little more left rear get up and go when you pick the throttle back up, I think. But for some reason, I can't really I can't really ever get the 100-pound spring to work, or anything softer than that. I don't know if the cars are just too heavy and it has so much load in the spring that it can't actually lift the car up. But a 125 or 150's probably your sweet spot.
Yeah, every time we've ever tried anything under the 125, like that 100, we've never made it work.
Yeah.
The car just doesn't do anything. It's like there's no spring to do anything with.
Yeah.
Let's see here. B-Mod, if I put 2 turns in my left rear, what can I expect? Well, of course, you're going to raise the left rear ride height. You're going to put 2 turns in the left rear. You're probably going to put about 15 pounds of bite on that left rear, which in turn, you're going to take 15 pounds of bite off the right rear. When you take bite off the right rear, you can risk a little bit of a side bite issue where the car can actually get free getting in to the point where what you tried to gain with loading the left rear more is definitely harder. Now, if your driver is really good at trail braking, it should actually improve the car from the power all the way off the corner. It's just, like I said, the only thing is corner entry can be, it can be a little free. Mike wants to know, Dallon, are you thinking about the new mod option? Your thoughts?
The motor.
Yeah.
The motor option. Yeah, I'm gonna try it out. It's really interesting to me. I think it's the fairest playing field we've probably ever seen with the open motor versus a crate. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna give it a shot, and I don't really know what. It sounds pretty equal right now, but I mean, one may shine. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good deal. I'm kind of looking forward to it. Do something different.
Yeah.
I mean, the crate stuff has been good, but everybody kind of has about the same horsepower within about 10 horsepower,
Yeah.
and sometimes that can make the racing not as exciting as it could be if there's a little more power in those things. And whether that'll happen or not, I have no idea. I can't believe that it won't because, there's a lot of smart engine builders out there that will come up with a cam combination and something that should make that work pretty good. Justin, good evening, guys. Thanks for everything you do. I have a Southern Sport Mod question that may involve a setup adjustment or a driver adjustment. Car is super good on slimy, slippery tracks and equally good on tacky racetracks, but we are terrible on dry slick. For dry, we take the right rear spacer off and move it to the left rear, and sometimes jack a couple turns in the left rear. We either push the nose in the middle of the corner or just plain don't have enough traction. One or the other. Well, I mean, of course, if you're pushing the nose, and I don't really know your rules that well, I'm not sure what all you can do on the front end, but majority of the time on a slick racetrack, when the car wants to shove the nose, the right front's not in the racetrack. You can get to a situation where you have just way too much left rear, but you can kind of deal with that by changing trailing arm. Well, you can't change trailing arm lengths because you're stock or suspension. I mean, you're basically a stock car with a modified body on it. What's your thoughts on that, Dallon? Chad?
Yeah, I think the wheel spacer thing, doing 2 of them, moving it from the right rear to tighten it up and then moving it to left rear to free it up in and tighten it up off, and then the wedge frees it up and tightens it up off. But sometimes when the pace slows down like that, tightening that entry up just makes it to the point where if you get it too tight rolling into the corner and you got to grab more wheel, you're going to be sideways once it breaks. I'm sure Dallon's probably had that where he's too tight on entry and then he's got to break it loose in the middle in the dry slick when the pace slows. and then then you're always sideways off the corner. So I think maybe that might not be the correct adjustment for that deal. I think you can probably relate to that and talk about that a little bit, Dallon. When the pace slows down, you would change your adjustments that you would normally do.
Yeah, you're right. You almost got to shear to get into the corner, and then you're tailed out the rest of the way. But if he said it was good in the mud, the right front's gonna go down into the racetrack because your rear tires have grip, and I think when that grip goes away, it sounds like the car just lacks posture. It don't have the actual grip in the racetrack to pull the car down. Like you said, Bob, maybe get the right front into the racetrack a little more, and that should help your entry too. You should be able to steer in way better.
Well, and Chad made a good point there. One of the things, especially with the modified stuff, people forget the fact that the racetrack slows down. So they tighten it up because it's slick, but we're not going as fast to the point where all of a sudden now the rear tires are too tight. And we've got the right rear getting extra side bite because we moved it in. We've got the left rear moving out, so it's getting extra forward bite. So now all of a sudden you got more side bite and more forward bite in the middle of the corner, and the right front can't keep up with it.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be a right front spring adjustment. The left rear wedge
Yeah,
thing's probably a good idea, but anytime you do two things there, you're
that's a
offset one
lot.
with the other.
And I'm assuming that he's talking about a half-inch spacer. I love wheel spacers. I wish sport mods could have wheel spacers because that's the cheapest, easiest thing that you can do to the race car. It's the most economical way to make changes, and of course, I like easy stuff because that working hard at the racetrack just that's never been for me. I used to laugh all the time. I come to the races and these guys get to the races and all of a sudden there's shit flying everywhere and they're thrashing and I mean, my God, and I'm thinking to myself, they're dyno tuning the motor and I'm thinking, holy shit, where are you guys been all week? Um, Tips for gaining straightaway speed, minimizing wheel spin, specifically on an IMCA sport mod. What's your thoughts, Chad?
Well, I mean, you're going to want to have bearing spacers. I think of things that make the car roll super easy. So synthetics, bearing spacers, things that lightweight components, things that make roll speed is what you're looking for. And stagger also cuts down straightaway speed too. So making a car work with less stagger in it is going to have more mile per hour down the straightaway. So that's a couple things just off the top of my head there.
Well, if you can minimize wheel spin, you're going to gain straightaway speed. Period. A lot of guys don't think about it, but playing with that throttle location, how the driver applies the throttle. I mean, I remember when uh, we were working with Ethan Dotson years ago, and up to gosh, I'm thinking we were up to Williston and I just couldn't get any grip on the car, couldn't get a grip on the car. And I'm like, man, I mean, everything we've done so far should have done that. And we just changed his throttle. I don't know if I think we lengthened it out a little bit so it slowed the throttle thing down. And he was amazed at the traction he had. I'm like, we didn't do nothing to gain traction. We just made it so that the throttle worked better with his foot. What's your thoughts, Don?
Yeah, like Chad said, that's a good deal. I mean, if your car's in the air and you can't go and spin your right front tire and walk away and come back, and I mean, generally should be still spinning. Good bearing spacers and a good grease also. That'll help a lot there.
Yeah, if it takes 3 men and a boy to roll that thing out of the garage, you got problems.
Yeah.
You need to do your homework. Shane wants to know, Dallon, what is your favorite racetrack you've raced, and what's the racetrack you would like to race at?
I got a lot of favorite racetracks. I really like Stewart. That's kind of one of my favorite locally. I like Marshtown just because it's It's 30 minutes from the house, and we seem to race there quite a bit. But I really loved I-80. That place was amazing, but we all know that shut down. A place I'd like to race, uh, probably Fairbury. That looks like a little cool joint. That'd be cool to go out there sometime.
Oh yeah, and I forgot on that list of accomplishments that you have that you won at Bristol too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bristol was pretty neat.
Yeah, that had to be an experience to, I mean, chalk that up.
Yeah, it was. There ain't nothing else that can even compare to
What
the
were you, a
G-force you
whopping
felt there.
17 then?
Uh, I think I would have been 17 in 21 there. Yeah.
I don't know about you, Chad, but I'm really starting to feel old.
No kidding.
One thing I'll compliment this young man on, whenever I come up to talk to him, he's always ready to talk to me.
Oh yeah.
And I have a ton of respect for especially the younger generation that still kind of respects all of us old guys. Travis said that he has a crate motor and he needs more speed out of the crate motor. Um, the biggest thing I can say with a crate motor is if you have the opportunity to put that thing on not an engine dyno, put that thing on an actual chassis dyno, that can get you a lot of help. I have yet to see somebody that put one on a chassis dyno that didn't gain at least 5 horsepower. And 5 horsepower on a crate motor is a lot. Joshua, may or may not be a setup question per se, but what could some drivers or possibly setup tips if you are always around 2/10 slower a lap wise than the top guys at your local racetrack? Oh man, just keep working on your car. I mean, just making sure that there's no drag in the car. Do everything that you possibly can. Uh, Driver needs to watch a lot of videos. So, and have an in-car camera watching what he does, because I'm not, I would never put a driver down, but you would be surprised at how much stuff can be improved just on how they actually handle the car. And of course, we got this 19-year-old here that's proven that. So tell us all about that. What do you do as a driver?
Me? What do you mean? What do I do as a
You know,
driver?
what makes you different as a driver than some of these guys?
I don't know. I them go karts. I grew up racing that, and I mean that just kind of taught you to be really straight and square, and just run around there in a circle. And I think that's helped me a lot in the stock car because the stock cars you don't really want to get them sideways.
You know,
You gotta. I don't. The braking has become way more implicate nowadays. We're all trying to enter the corner a lot faster, and I've kind of been bad about backing my entry up too much, and I think that's kind of where I struggled at the mod at first. The mod, you kind of just had to let it go into the corner and then wait on the throttle, and kind of getting a little bit from the mod has definitely helped me in the stock car for sure. But the biggest thing, just run around there as straight and as square as you can, and I mean you're gonna find speed somewhere.
yeah, I would agree with that. If you're sideways, you're not going forward. Man,
Yeah.
it might look good, it might feel good. It's just that picture, Chad, that I always use the chassis schools of those 3 cars, one sideways, one straight, and one's pushed into the fence. And I mean, it just, you know, as a driver, when I was a driver, man, it felt good when you were sideways. I mean, God, you're making noise and shit's happening. You ain't going nowhere, but boy, it's cool. Yeah. Okay, so we got John. I'd like to get on the right front a little bit harder, but if I go softer on spring, it drags the frame.
Yeah, that was that question earlier, I think, about the entry, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
Um, well, and I mean, honestly, softening the spring definitely is going to get it over there more. But sometimes that's not always the answer. I mean, sometimes it, has to do with your left rear drop, how much left rear drop you have, pull bar, how much angle you have in that can affect the right front. Um, camber caster can affect the right front. Um, what's your opinion on that, Dallon?
Yeah, I mean all that you said. That's a tricky situation there when you feel the need to go softer and you do it, and then all of a sudden you're in the racetrack. A fine tuning deal, would be like add some anti dive in your upper control arm on the right front. But I is that the Southern Sport Mod or the Sport Mod they're talking about?
Is that a B mod?
The
B
B
Mod,
mod.
yeah. So I don't think you can adjust that, can you? Or
I don't think they can.
yeah. Yeah, that's a tricky deal there. The left rear drop would definitely, get the right front out of the racetrack. You may feel you're gonna lose that dynamic wedge feeling, but it's gonna keep the right front out of the racetrack. Or you could honestly try like just getting a huge right front tire to put up there just to statically raise the right height, but not necessarily add a ton of load.
Yeah, that's a good point. Never thought about that. Mike says, I'm new to stock cars. How much setup change do you do from track to track?
When I get a sweet spot, I try not to change much from track to track, but like if you're going to a bigger track, it's always kind of seem you need a little bit stiffer right rear spring, or maybe a little more load for just the amount of speed you're going to carry into the corner. Our stock cars generally rear up and kind of lay on the right rear nowadays, so kind of got to do that for flatter and bigger tracks. You can also soften the right front if you're going to a flatter place, just to kind of get it down into the racetrack a little better. But really, just a lot of fine tuning.
Yeah, once you get that sweet spot, you don't see wholesale changes. It's just minute changes. What's
Yeah,
your thoughts, Chad?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you gotta fine tune and find something that you can do. Um, Once you get that baseline, you got to build on it and not get too far away from it. But when you do get away from it, you got to go back to it. So I think having a good notebook and having a good baseline is the key.
Yeah. Well, I know on that car that McBurney drives, of course, he doesn't race it that much, but they finally made the first change at Marshalltown at the end of the year that they'd made on that car all year long, and that was a right rear shock.
yeah.
Now, as it turned out, they should have run that. They should have changed that right rear shock so they could have run with you and track at Boone. Uh, Dan, J bar versus long rear bar. In my opinion, if you can run a J bar, I would definitely run a J bar. Number one, it's in the front of the rear end. So when the car rolls and the right and the left side gains height, pinion angle comes into play. And so the panhard or the J bar actually is not changing a whole lot of angle. Where the rear panhard bar does the opposite. When the rear end does move, and even though you got a solid upper link, when you have steer in it, the rear end's going to torque up and actually gain, it takes pinion angle out of it, which is going to actually drop that back bar down. So you gain angle in it. And so I mean, it is what it is. If you have to run the long panhard bar like what we run on the sport mods, you just deal with it and you finally find your sweet spot and it works well. But if I could run a J bar, I'd run that every day of the week compared to the bar behind. What to generally expect corner entry and exit with each? In my opinion, the car will actually rotate smoother with the J bar. The long rear panhard bar is going to probably be a little tighter getting into the corner. I don't really see either one making a huge difference off the corner. I think it's more corner entry and corner apex that you would see. You guys are a wealth of knowledge. We appreciate what you do so much. Thanks. Well, I know Chad's not that old. And of course, we're talking to this kid. Now, I'm really old, so I've had a lot of experience. Jared, do we still do we still make a bearing spacer for a Camaro spindle, or can you use a different one and make it work? Jared, I'm sorry, I would have no clue. I've even when we first started building modifieds with stock spindles, we always used the metric Impala. Then we went to the metric um, uh, just a standard metric one, and I never actually ran that Camaro one. So I would think that that Camaro one would be the same as the metric. I mean, I don't see why they would. I mean, you'd have to check the bearings. You go to your parts store and find out what bearings the Camaro one uses compared to what bearings uh, the metric one uses. But I would think that the metric one would probably work.
I think All Star has all of them on their website or on their.
Awesome. Dylan, Dallon, what would you say best describes the way your modified drives?
You said that was from Dylan.
Yeah.
There. I don't know. They're at the end of the year.
Now, just a second. You have to understand you're really special because there's only a few guys he gets on here with. You're
Yeah, I feel special. It was a funny story. He hot lapped it in Florida, and he said that was the biggest pile of shit he's ever drove. Then he hot lapped it at the end of the year and said, "I don't know how the hell you didn't win Super Nationals with that." So he's had both pictures of it, but it just you're kind of all barred up pretty much all the time as soon as you roll on the racetrack, and you're staring at the right front. And
yeah.
there better
The
not be
crate
no
motor,
holes in the racetrack.
yeah. And with the crate motor, you just have to be so aggressive.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually thought it was pretty cool because, of course, I know you guys are pretty good friends. And that night at Marshalltown, going into 1 and 2, when he parked it right in front of you, I thought that was really cool. I'm like, if it would have been anybody else, they would have never hit the brakes.
Yeah.
And your front end was almost on the freaking ground.
Oh yeah, I still owe him for that one.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Slide job, but I'm thinking, oh, you're lucky that guy's your friend. Dallin, do I need to bring a bigger generator to Boone to run both of our tire grinders this next season, or did you get yours running?
I got mine running. We should be good now.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than a generator that doesn't run.
Yeah. Our toter them owning generators, it went out on our toter, and they wanted it was a crazy amount to fix it and to put a new one in. So we went to Harbor Freight and got that 9,500 watt quiet one, and just tied it on the sports deck, and that's our generator now.
Well, the generator in my motorhome has been nothing but a pain in the butt since I've actually bought that motorhome.
Yeah.
And I was kind of the same way. I called to find out what it was going to cost to put a new generator in that thing, and it was like $9,500. And I'm like, And Bobby says, well, why don't we just build something that bolts on the hitch, and then you can take the Honda generator and bolt it on the back of it. I'm like, yeah, that'd be a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And, we bought that Honda generator for when we went to the racetrack. Well, really, the only racetrack that we go that we need a generator there isn't a racetrack that we need a generator anymore because we always have electricity at Boone. So I don't think that thing's been running 2 years. Mike wants to know, do you like lead or trail in your stock cars and why?
I like left rear back, so left rear behind the right rear. I don't know. That's kind of how I've always been. I felt like it lets the left rear walk forward better, and it gives me a way better instant traction feeling in the center of the corner to kind of pick the left rear up and move forward and get off the corner and get down the straightaway. I've never really tried going a bunch of trail right rear back, but I know like every time I've bent my right rear my right rear axle tube has got bent back, I've been complete garbage. So,
Oh
and
yeah.
I've had it the other way where the left rears went even further back, and I've been I've able to still finish the race and not feel as bad. But if that right rear gets bent back, I feel absolutely terrible.
Well, I think those things lack so much side bite that if you try running trail in the car on the right rear, it just keeps turning.
Yeah, yeah,
It
for sure.
never
I'm
squares
only
up.
about a half inch or so, 3/8 to half inch left rear back.
Jared wants to know what wheel bearing grease is your go-to.
Mine's that Day Lube off of I don't know, I get it online somewhere.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that day loop stuff. That's what we actually sell.
Yeah.
And don't you use the grease kind of like that, like in your bearings on your bird cages and stuff, Chad?
No, they come pre-greased from the manufacturer.
Oh,
We use the grease similar to that in the sliders,
sliders. Yeah. Okay.
but it's a cheaper version of it. That stuff is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Stock car. What brings traction to the right rear quicker? Right rear trailing arm up or down from standard? Center out. Well, everything that I've ever experienced is running that right rear trailing arm down is going to give you more traction. Problem with that is if you get too aggressive on it, then that's going to get you some right rear side bite in the middle of the corner that can tend to want to shove the nose just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. That's a tricky deal there. It kind of all has to do with your spring rate and how much actual load you're running. If you can have a little bit of angle in that arm and not really have the right rear feeling like it's racing in the air, it's a really good deal because that angle will drive the right rear into the racetrack, and then it's just as long as you're not racing too high where it'll actually unstick the tire. But the big theme now is to move that arm up, just because it feels like it gives you a lot more stick center off. But all it's really doing is just letting it lay on it. So I like to run a little bit at more angle than probably most people. But you just got to kill load, or you got to run a little bit softer spring over there to compensate that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you run more angle there, you almost have to run. I mean, it's kind of like a four-link car. I mean, when you get a lot of angle in the upper rod on a four-link car, you almost have to soften the spring just a little bit because
Yeah.
between the combination of both of them, you have too much spring stiffness. Let's see here. Jesse, running a BHE GRT, went to Vegas from North Dakota and fought getting the car to roll over on the flatter bank. What did I do wrong coming from a higher bank racetrack? Higher bank racetrack. Um, well, it depends. I mean, there could be quite a bit of things because, of course, your higher bank racetrack up there in North Dakota, your speeds are substantially faster. And, if you're talking about Casa Grande, it's still got some bank to it. I would probably soften the front of the car up maybe a little bit so that the front end gets down in the racetrack a little bit more. Um, I'm not huge on a real soft right rear spring. Every time I've tried to soften up the right rear spring, I get the car to roll over, but then it just lays there. So then it doesn't want to come up off the corner, like it should. So I'm a little cautious about that. Uh, I would probably say working on, softer compression shock, maybe on both sides, on both right sides, and maybe softening the front end. What's your thoughts, Chad?
Yeah, I mean, going from the bank track to a flat track, generally you're going to have to soften the right front probably a little bit, depending on the speed. You know, he was talking about Vegas. That's pretty fast.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It probably would have taken softening the front end maybe. But you would think that the speed at Vegas would overcome the flat.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Dallon, did you ever run Vegas?
Yeah, I've ran it 3 times in the stock car.
Did
Yep.
you do anything different?
I did soften the right front up the last time I was out there. But yeah, like you said, usually when you think of flat tracks, soften the right front up. But that place, you're just on the gas. You're hardly ever off the gas there. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean that would be. I mean, some things to think about, but once again, yeah, I was thinking you meant Arizona, not Vegas. Sorry. Sean, IMCA modified with a crate. What's the best way to get drive? Left rear has a 125-pound spring with an inch and a half of preload. At full droop, top left bar has 48 degrees. Wehrs heavy left rear zero index. Right rear is a 200 13-inch spring with a 300 pounds of load at ride height. With the driver has sneaky horse pull bar at 17 degrees. Pinion is at 7 degrees. In my opinion, I think you're too stiff on the left rear spring, and I think you're too soft on the right rear spring. I think I would try a 80 or a 100-pound spring in that left rear, and I'd probably try a 225 in that right rear so that the car's just not laying on that right side and not doing anything. 200, I don't know, man. It's every time I've tried, we used to do that years ago, but every time I try a 200 anymore in this stuff with the crate motor, the car just gets lazy. And at 125, I mean, some guys run that, but I've had a lot better luck going softer than that. Mike's watching. That's awesome. Craig, what is your opinion on Argo Pacer spindles for the USRA B mod? They say the steering arm is lower so that you have shorter spacers on the tie rods, where it's bolted to the spindle steering arm. I don't have a tremendous amount of experience with that Pacer spindle. I know, I'm pretty sure Argo's spindle, that's a copy of the Pacer spindle, is definitely probably heavier duty. The problem with the Pacer spindles back in the day, they had a lot of great things about them, but they were so weak that, I mean, a rough racetrack could bend a spindle. But you're right, the steering arm is lower. You just got to make sure that the kingpin's in the same location, because if you change the kingpin, then you're going to have to redo all the ball joints, and you're going to have to do some front end work to get everything back to where it was. So you just want to make sure you measure those out very carefully, because the location of the upper ball joint and the lower ball joint in relationship to the kingpin, I mean the actual spindle part of itself is definitely different. Dallon, if you wasn't in a Terminator, what other chassis would you be in? You don't have to actually answer that unless you want to. That's kind of a political question.
Yeah, that is a pub and get me in trouble. No, there's a lot of great stock car builders. B&B's been building a really good car. Vanderbilt started building cars. They've been pretty good. It's just really, if you're getting into a stock car, you have a ton of options to be successful for sure, which I think is very good for our deal. But yeah, there's just a lot of good chassis. Whichever, if I had to recommend a chassis, it'd be whoever is willing and able to work with you, and you can call up there and ask all kinds of questions, and then they give you really good feedback.
That's the key. In today's world, it's all about the service and the technical support, because this whole racing thing has just gotten so much more technical that if you don't have help, I mean, 'cause, we've got guys that don't call us as much as they should, and I scold them because I mean, we don't want you looking bad. I mean, we want you looking
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So if you have to talk to us 3 times a week, that's okay. But yeah, in my opinion, the stock car market is just awesome right now. I mean, there's a lot of great race cars out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, Drew, what's your opinion on being stiffer on the left rear now with the new ride height rule?
I haven't really ever tried going stiffer than a 150 at that 9-inch right height rule. I just thought essentially like on a load stick it's gonna say you're carrying more load with a stiffer spring at 9 inches, but you're not really carrying as much energy, in my opinion, as with a softer spring. So I've just always kind of relied on the actual smashing of the softer spring to kind of help get the car up and into posture.
Um, Dallon, what's your thoughts on right front bump spacers?
On my that'd be modified stuff.
Yeah, it'd have to be.
I've tried a ton of bump one time, and it really messed my front end up. It just always wanted to keep turning right. I really wasn't a fan of that. I think I'm at like I don't a quarter to 3/8 right now, and that's kind of just been my sweet spot. Really haven't. Every time I've gone away from it, I've gotten worse.
Yeah, that's where we're at on our right front is a quarter.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and your car uses the same spindles that we use.
Yeah.
Michael, TH right rear spring. I was almost thinking we were going to make it a night without that one, Chad. TH right rear spring, 13 or 11 over a conventional, yes or no, and why? Which of you want to take that one?
Dallon.
Dallon, go for it.
Man, I live and die by that thing myself. But honestly, I tell everyone it's such a personal preference. I've been on it for almost 5 years now, and my dad, he's never liked it once. That tells you it's so driver preference. To me, it makes the right rear lazier. So I mean, you're really waiting on the right rear all the time. But when it does finally grab, I feel like you have way more straight line. But you give up, that entry and center, stick. So you just take it hand in hand. I like the 11 better. I've kind of migrated to 11-inch right rear springs, no matter what, just to help get some spring table in it. And I know guys that don't like that short right rear spring, but I feel like if I can get that positive spring table back in it with smashing the left rear spring, it'll help the car just gradually want to get up and get into posture. And yeah, that's pretty much my opinion on it.
Yeah, that is kind of a controversial deal. When the guys that love it, and the guys that hate it, hate it.
Yeah.
I think it's, and I really think it has a lot more to do with the drivers that drive straighter.
Yeah. Just because you lose that entry and almost through the center. To me, you're just waiting on the right rear to grab, and guys that are gonna blast off in there and dump the throttle and stab the brake. I mean, you're probably not gonna want to do that, but you get a guy like Kelly that can just roll through the center and keep it really straight. I mean, it's really gonna benefit you.
Yeah, I mean, it works well for him.
Yeah.
Mike, what's your opinion? Or Mike wants to know, what's your opinion on valving the left rear shock and how aggressive is too much? It really depends on what you want to do out of that. We're pretty much all over the board on that. Personally, I would like to run the left rear shock with the least amount of compression that I could possibly run because I think it gives more traction. A real high compression left rear shock is going to free the car up getting into the corner. It might help it off the corner, But some drivers, the way they drive, and they're not real good at trail braking. We got to do that to help hold the car in posture, just because their driving style doesn't necessarily yield to that making work. So, my personal opinion, like I said, I mean, when we can go to like an 8 compression stuff, I still believe there's more traction there. But that's another driver preference. It just kind of depends on what the driver likes. What's your opinion, Dallon?
Yeah, you said it right. That least amount of compression is probably the most traction you're gonna feel, and that's how we always was until they made that right height rule. We had to add a lot of compression to our left rear shock just to help get it up and to get some movement out of the car, just because you wasn't able to put a ton of left rear weight jack into the car anymore.
Sure.
So that was one of the things we had to up. But then again, you're freeing your entry up even more, and you're almost getting a snappy feeling back to the throttle. So it's really not the thing to do, but in our case, it was about the only thing we could.
Yeah. Yeah, and you just have to kind of learn to drive it accordingly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're actually 5 minutes past 8, and I promised Dallin he'd only be on here for an hour, and we've got quite a few more questions. So we're gonna go for a little bit here, and then we'll have to cut it off. We did that. What kind of shock package would we run on a B mod for a beginner at 141 or Plymouth? And our standard sport mod package works really well. That's what Taylor Cools runs. This last 2 weekends, she's 3 out of 4 with the second place and 3 wins. So her stuff seems to be going pretty good. I would call the shop and either talk to Bobby or Braden, because that they would be able to give you a whole lot more detailed information. If I gave you all the detailed information, we'd be here till 8:30. On a sport mod, why do people run the left rear chain close to the center of the rear end? I feel it makes it influence the right rear too much and kills my side bite. Go for it, Chad.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when the chain gets tight, it picks it up. So the closer you are to whichever tire is going to pick it up easier. So moving into the middle does influence the right rear a little bit more than having it farther out to the left rear. The problem is when you move it out to the left rear, then it tries to pick that tire up off the racetrack too quick. So it's kind of a balancing act between both sides, especially on a 2-link car. It's hard to do things with the suspension to limit where like on a 4-lane car where you can lock it out with the bars, and you don't have that ability on a 2-lane car. So you are relying on the chain to limit the travel. So definitely, you need to find that balance of where you're not picking up the right rear too much.
Okay. Jamie wants to know, Dallin, what is your opinion on lower stock car ride heights that IMCA implemented last year? I'm moving up to a USRA stock car where the minimum height is 5 inches.
Yeah, that was the window we fit last year. Like the things we had to change to accommodate the 7 and 9 inch rule was we had to soften the right front. So I think for sure, you'd be able to go back up to your 850 or 900 on the right front and just run it, a little lower on the right height wise for the USRA stuff. And that's really about all we changed. I mean, just had to move some weight jacks around, but
Right.
that 5 and 10 is a way more open window. You can right front, you can probably get to around 5 3/4 to 6 for right height, and then the left rear you can get upwards to 9.5 to 9 3/4, and that's a pretty good starting spot there.
Okay. Dallin, what's the higher stock car height that IMCA implemented in 24? That's the same. Isn't that the same as the?
That's the one.
Yeah,
You
that's a
repeat it.
duplicate. Mitch says, always good information. Thanks. What's your guys' opinion on brake floater bar underneath mounted at the back of the cockpit? Is it better than the clamped up one? Um, I don't actually have an opinion on that. I know that seems to be the trend. Um, you know, what's your opinion, Dallon?
Yeah, I've never tried it underneath, but I've always thought just clamped to the cage was the most forgiving for what job it was gonna do. That bar seemed, I mean, you almost had to be perfect with the brake pedal to not slam the nose or let the car sit down. So it just I wasn't near as good enough on the brake pedal to run the bar. The clamp to the cage just was way more easier to drive.
How about you, Chad?
Yeah, when you move it underneath, so what it does is actually pulls the rear end underneath the car. So it's trying to pull the rear end underneath, the driver basically. So it's very aggressive and not real consistent from what I can see. The guys that have it figured out are pretty good, but like Dallon said, your braking ability, again, there. He just said something about the clamp to the cage that I don't know if anybody's ever said. Is that he feels it's more forgiving than the brake floor arm, and you'd line 5 guys up and get 5 different answers, and that's a fact. I get it everywhere I go, but that underneath deal is pretty aggressive, and it tries to pull the rear end under the car. It's not for everybody. It's not magic. You ain't gonna kiss a trophy queen. So, yeah, but it is aggressive. Never clamp it to the tube on a pull bar car. That's only a lift arm car deal.
Okay, Tracy, we actually already answered that question. Your opinion on the right tight spring with helix spring or whatever. Michael, bolted on shocks by BHE this year, and wow, Braden and Bobby hooked me up. Thanks for the live. Always good to hear and learn. Well, I appreciate that, Michael. Now, what did those guys give you to be able to come on here and say that anyway? Did they give you an extra discount or something, or what's the deal? Or did they do that good a job? They really do. Those guys, they bust their butt in there, and they do pretty good. They get along well, and they're always thinking, and so they do a good job. Ryan, what's the max top left bar on a UMP modified that you would wouldn't go past? Well, I wouldn't go over 50 degrees of static. 48 is a common number that we use. You get too much of that, and then you kind of get into that povo stick effect. It kind of depends on how you are on the brakes because you got a lot of angle in the upper bar, and that's going to also try to drive the car over on the right front. So if you're on the verge of sticking the frame in the right front, that more angle back there is going to do that. What's your opinion, Chad? You know a lot about that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's like, oh, let's see how much top rod we can put in it and cam it over, right? So, but like you said, you're going to get to the point where it's a pogo stick and it's not the right thing to do. Yeah, so there's more traction with less upper bar angle, believe it or not.
Okay, our last question. Robert, if you could move the uppers on a 4-link metric, what would you move? Left up or a little of both? I don't know. The rear ends that we do, the upper stuff actually is pretty standard. I mean, we've not really done anything real wild up there because, I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, because in reality, that whole rear suspension's kind of in enough bind the way it is. I don't actually. We don't change it. It's pretty much kind of almost stock. Well, last question. Trevor wants to know, Dallon, if you got any spare uppers in your trailer yet.
Spare uppers?
Yeah,
Yeah, we did. We're all stocked.
you're all stocked.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and I got him paid back and replenished, so we're good.
That's right. He runs the same brand of car you do, so that would be.
Yeah, I think we was in 141 and we got into a huge wreck in the heat race, and he was the only one that had one up there that I needed. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a great night. Let's see here. Today is December 2nd, so we'll be back here December 16th. Dallon, I really appreciate you coming on here. Man, I tell you what, for a young guy, you know an awful lot. You've accomplished an awful lot, and I'm just impressed. I mean, you do an awesome job.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. And I appreciate
The only thing that I wish is you had BHE on the side of that car. That's the only thing I wish.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
other
that'd
than
be
that,
cool.
and I'm not campaigning on nothing. I'm just making a statement here.
No,
So,
thank you. I appreciate it. This has been fun.
all right. Well, thanks, Dallin. Thanks, Chad. You guys
Yep,
have a
thank you.
good night and a good couple weeks.
See you later.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.